Valkyrie profile nowadays goes for over $400 US.
Right? Damn it. Average.
So what the hell happened?
What is up, everyone? This is your boy Jho-RPG with another video for ya. This time we are going to do a reaction video to the grim future of JRPG collecting made by Mr. ERICK LANDON RPG himself. Now, first of all, I am a big fan of Mr. Landon. He is a fellow JRPG player and collector from Mexico, and thanks to his videos recommending some JRPGs, he was very much an influential force in making my collection grow as it is now.
Thank you very much, Jho-RPG. Thank you for inspiring me to make my own channel about JRPGs. Wow, my pleasure, man. If my work inspires people, if I gotten to a point where my work inspires people, man, I'm so proud of myself. Thank you. Thank you very much for those words. What are your top 3 in your bucket list as a JRPG enthusiast?
And for all of you JRPG players and collectors out there, I highly suggest checking out his channel that I am providing below at the description box. The way I'm going to do this, I am going to watch and listen to his monologue and pause every time he says something that I would like to add my 2 cents in. So, here we go.
I remember when I started collecting, I wanted to focus on JRPGs. Every now and then I used to collect a game or 2 from other genres, but my love for RPGs got me dead set on mostly focusing on them. The entire market back then was different.
Before I had a PlayStation 1, I used to play a bunch of video games that I thought were fun. When we got our first PlayStation 1 back in 1998, the first JRPG that I personally played was Tales of Destiny. You need to understand that back in the late 90s, Japanese anime was such a big deal back then that the main selling point of Tales of Destiny to me were the anime cutscenes and the anime-like game design. And then I fell in love with the concept of having a bunch of diverse characters and battles and, a good promulgating storyline. And after playing Tales of Destiny, I was hungry for more like that. And eventually, the only genre that I could think of up until this day are JRPGs.
There were just a bunch of us out there trying to collect them. In fact, it was so easy to find them for a decent price or even dirt cheap, because most people didn't want them. In my time, collectors were starting to buy Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. Nobody was paying top-notch prices for any RPG whatsoever, though.
He mentioned something about collecting JRPGs and Nintendo. In the mid-90s of the console wars, I do not have any knowledge that there was a genre like JRPGs. And even something as big as Chrono Trigger or early Dragon Quest or early Final Fantasy, I think one of the main reasons of that was the Western sensibilities of video gaming were more influential to the gamers of the 90s. That Sega and Nintendo were dishing out games that they thought the consumers would likely buy and play. Knowing what I know now, JRPGs were more popular in Japan, of course, but there were only a few instances that some games would be localized into English, and that even fewer that would get a decent success with the English-speaking consumers. In the Philippines, some households either have the SNES or the Super Famicom, the latter rather than the former even. Japan is the closer country from us anyway compared to the US. So to us, we usually get their games first, and if those games are JRPGs that would involve a lot of Japanese text and reading, like reading all of the text, it is a deal breaker, for non-Japanese players. And even if you only have a Super Famicom, some players would just play the game not knowing what is going on, regardless. But as a kid of those days, I would rather play something less daunting like reading Japanese text that I can't even understand. And even if there were kids who were able to play the English version of Chrono Trigger, they were still a minority against the counterculture marketing by Sega and Nintendo. Until, of course, Sony came along in 1995.
Chrono Trigger copies sold for $50 and that was considered expensive. Right. Today, a loose copy of it goes for over $200. I remember getting 2 copies of Valkyrie Profile in great condition, both for $30. I actually sold one for $70 a few months afterwards. I posted the game for $80 on different places and the only guy interested in paying that amount talked me down to $70. He even gave me this keychain to commemorate the event. Such a strange guy. Valkyrie
lovely.
Profile nowadays goes for over $400 US.
Right? Damn it. Average.
So what the hell happened?
Retail prices of PlayStation 1 games back in the late 90s were pretty much even, regardless of the genre. The average PS1 game would go between $30 to $50 US. Thinking back, I probably should have started collecting them back then, but I was still a high school student. So, of course, during those days, I don't have the means to buy the games that I wanted to play. Fast forward to now, I feel the weight of JRPG collecting because of the ridiculous prices that I see online. And last June of 2019, I bought Valkyrie Profile, complete in box, for almost $180 US from eBay. And that was the cheapest that I could find. Just recently, I bought my second Valkyrie Profile from Facebook Marketplace for at least $30 US. Yes, you heard me right. A complete in box, mint condition, English version, Valkyrie Profile for the PlayStation 1 for only $30 US. I didn't even ask questions to the seller. I just bought the damn thing right immediately.
Most people will blame it on the pandemic, that's true. Millions of people got into gaming because they were locked up with limited entertainment out there. Just imagine how many of those millions actually got into collecting. Especially since most of them started buying games merely out of nostalgia, and they had the money to do it because they weren't spending it on anything else. So overpaying a retro game was normal because they were ignorant of the market. Are they to blame for this insane price increase on video games? But what about RPGs? Didn't I say it was a very niche thing back then?
Yes.
What the hell got everybody so interested in the genre then? Us YouTubers, friends, or family, the internet itself?
I will not put the blame on the pandemic necessarily, because JRPG prices between 2015 and 2019, to me, showed a steady increase compared to the prices of the late 2000s. I would, however, agree that the internet and the nostalgia factor were major influences in spreading awareness to the consumers, especially those 90s gamers who were hanging on to the memories of old JRPGs of their youth, but were not able to get the games that they wanted for themselves. Ever since Final Fantasy VII basically put the JRPG genre on the Western map in 97, it pretty much nurtured a decent-sized niche of gamers until it gradually became a major demographic in the gaming industry. With the use of the internet, of course, you can show actual game footages and provide personal reviews, game walkthroughs, previews, that they are more accessible and more interactive rather than the olden days of you reading and looking at still pictures on gaming magazines. With a growing awareness of these olden games, the law of supply and demand will understandably be in effect. I am not a reseller per se, but I would be insane if you tell me to sell my JRPGs for less than $50.
Then there's the resellers. Obviously they took advantage of the situation.
I'd say the resellers.
But isn't that what any normal merchant will do? They do this for a living, so if something is trending, they need to go after it to make a profit. Scalpers, however, also took advantage, and I've seen some really nasty cases around. Some douchebags selling a $100 RPG for $300 to someone else. Someone that probably doesn't know shit about RPG collecting. I've also seen cases of others trying to rip people off, but they thankfully failed. So, are scalpers to blame? Or any other reseller out there? What about the consumer? Some collectors, even being aware of the current market price of an RPG, are still willing to pay those outrageous prices. Once a few of them do, the game's price goes up again. But that's always been the case even from before most of us started collecting. It's only natural that if something is selling or trending, and if people are paying for it, chances are the price will gradually increase. So it seems to me that there's not just one type of people to blame. It's pretty much everybody and everything. One thing led to another, and now RPG collecting is horrible. It's a goddamn luxury that most people won't be able to afford.
I know. Overpricing the older generation games, I would say, is not exclusively happening on JRPGs alone. What Mr. Landon was saying here is that there are people here who would pay top dollar just to get their hands on these kinds of games. For JRPG players and collectors, both veterans and the newly indoctrinated, they are pretty much aware and prepared to look and pay for the JRPGs out there that they can find on a fair price. Now, I am using the word fair price loosely here because what is considered a fair price in JRPG collecting anyway? JRPG collecting is indeed an investment as long as there is a market for it.
I've always encouraged emulation no matter the reason. Now I'm encouraging it even for more obvious reasons. If you think you're stealing or committing a crime by doing it, think twice. Companies aren't making any money out of retro RPGs anymore. Unless they re-release them digitally, which is something some of them have been doing for the past few years. But only with some titles. Most of them are still lost out there, and the only way to play them is to pay the outrageous price some resellers ask for them, or by emulating them. So what's the crime here? Who exactly are you stealing from? Isn't emulation the only way nowadays for most people, even from first world countries, to play some of these RPGs?
First world countries.
It certainly puts things into perspective.
Okay. Now, Mr. Landon spoke about emulation here. It is understandable if one chooses in playing emulated games, especially if you have no desire or means on getting the actual games for yourselves, or even the consoles to play them with, especially with the older games. If we are looking at the very legal definition of gaming piracy, we are making a copy of the software for our leisure without the game developer's consent, even if we are not even distributing or selling them to others. Mr. Landon pointed out that should we emulate the older games, the developers who made these games are most likely gone by now, right? Or owned by other gaming companies. They are no longer gaining any sort of revenue when their games are being circulated as resale items. I'm not a lawyer per se, but I don't think non-existing game companies may even have the legal precedence to go after websites that provide downloadable gaming software. Nowadays, existing gaming companies would just release official digital release of their selected gaming inventory via PlayStation Store, Xbox Live, and Nintendo Shop. There are some JRPGs that you may see in there, but those are just the popular ones. It is a different story to those JRPGs that are so obscure, or at least had a limited release that may be just as good or even better than what we see in the digital store.
Is there any solution to this? Will prices go back to normal once COVID is over? I don't think so, especially not with retro games. I strongly believe those prices are here to stay. They probably won't go up anymore since most random people who are still paying their prices right now will stop collecting. Probably. Some very obscure and niche RPGs might go down a little bit, but it's still highly unpredictable. There's no way to know. So as RPG collectors, are we stuck with these prices even if the pandemic ends? Since it's a luxury now, most of us won't be able to afford them, or won't even want to afford them. Will the market crash then if most of us stop paying those prices? The future of RPG collecting seems grim. Very grim indeed. And well, since there doesn't seem to be any conclusion whatsoever, looks like I'm gonna have to bring someone else for this discussion in the near future. So with that said, see you next time.
Not gonna say a solution, but maybe a suggestion. The JRPGs that we get right now on retail, let's just consider them as the cheapest that we will ever gonna get. If the trend here is that the original retail price of a JRPG would multiply at least twice after 5 years, I think it is good investment to just buy them now, day one. Admittingly, I am one of those people who would wait until the retail prices would drop by at least 50% before I buy the actual games. However, the practice of producing a limited supply of physical copies of video games, investing more on the digital releases, is being adopted more and more by gaming companies recently. So if the supply is low, but the demand is high, you bet your ass that the games that you want to play might cost you an arm and a leg, sooner or later. Well, that is all for me, guys. I still have a lot of things to say in regarding with this topic, but let's just leave it at that. Apparently, Mr. Landon made a follow-up video after this one where he had some help discussing this further. So, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to this channel, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye-bye.